Good day everyone, this is Sir Carlo and welcome back to our Mathematics 8 video discussion. We are now on the third module for this quarter in which we will be talking about triangle congruence. Now let's go directly to our first lesson. So our first lesson will be about corresponding parts of congruent triangles. So before we start, you all know what a triangle is, right? A triangle is shaped with three sides and three vertices, and it has three angles from a triangle. And when we say congruent, it means the same or equal or similar. So we will be dealing with triangles that have the same measure, the same form, the same parts. But when can we say that a triangle or two triangles are congruent? So let's read here in our notes. Two triangles are congruent if their vertices can be paired so that corresponding sides are congruent and corresponding angles are congruent. So ma-congruent daw ang duha ka triangle if kung atong parison ang ilang mga vertex kanang isig katumoy bitaw nila nga point, those are called vertex. So kung ato daw parison ang ilang mga vertex, ang ilang side ug ang ilang angle kay parihara. These triangles have the same size, that is, they exactly overlap each other. So ang duha ka triangle kung atong patungon, the same ra sila og gidakon, the same sila og measure, the same sila og size. So that is the time that we can say that two triangles are congruent. Now let's take a look at these two triangles on the right. Natay duha ka triangle, di ba? And kung bantay mo na yung mga baglis-baglis. So mani ang atong mga markings kung asa nila ang congruent. So naatay duha ka triangle, naatay triangle ABC ug naatay triangle DEF. So kung kabantay mo sa side CB, di ba, na isa ka baglis, then ari pod sa side EF na isa ka baglis. That means this side CB or BC is congruent to this side EF. So ani pod sa side CA banay duha ka baglis. Then sa atong pikas triangle naapod tay duha ka baglis sa side nga DF. So this means that this side CA or AC is congruent to the side DF. The same with this one, side BA, di ba na itulo ka baglis? Side BA. Ari pod sa pikas nga triangle sa atong side DE na pitulo ka baglis, which means side BA is congruent to side ED. So ang atong tulo ka sides sa atong duha ka triangle kay mga congruents, puro sila congruent. Then tan-aw na to ang ilang angle. So ari ta sa angle A na isa ka baglis, di ba? Mo man ang angle, mo man timelhan nga na angle. This is angle A. Then na isa ka baglis ari. Ari pud sa atong pikas triangle sa atong angle D, kung ni atong angle D na po isa ka baglis. This means that angle A is congruent to angle D. The same with angle C. Diba? Tanawa ang angle C. Nay duha ka baglis diri. Then sa atong pikas nga triangle, sa atong angle F, napoy duha ka baglis. So this means that angle C is congruent to angle F. The same with angle B being congruent to angle E. So 'di ba ang atong angles ug ang atong sides kay puro congruent. So this just means that these two triangle ABC and triangle DEF are congruent triangles. So ingani ang symbol sa congruent class. Kani this one. This is the symbol for congruency and this is the symbol for a triangle. So kung mag-name tag triangle, atong gamiton ang ilang tulo ka vertex, then butangan natong ingani ka symbol. So ang name sa atong triangles kay triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So triangle ABC and DEF are congruent since their corresponding parts are congruent. So sa atong gi-examine dire sa ibabaw, di ba? Congruent ang ilang mga sides o congruent ang ilang mga angles. So their corresponding parts are congruent. So they agi show sa table ang ilang mga corresponding parts. So na mga vertices, vertex A is congruent to vertex D. Nganong congruent na gani si A ug si D? Kay di ba ang ilang angle pod kay congruent. So B is congruent to E, C is congruent to F. Then ani na pod sa mga angles, angle A is congruent to angle D and so on. Then sa sides, katong atong gitan-aw ganina, AC is congruent to DF and so on. So ingana pag-examine kung congruent ba ang mga corresponding parts sa isa ka triangle. So ug mag-mark gani ta og kanang mga sides or angle na congruent, kailangan ang side nga congruent pareha sila og marking. So kani si CB congruent man sa EF, so pareha sila nga isa ra mark. Then dili man nato pwede markan og isa ra ka baglis ang next nga side, kay ang meaning ana congruent pud siya sa CB kung kintahay kaning CA. Kung isa ra ka mark atong ibutang, meaning ana congruent pud siya sa CB. So dapat lahi na pod, duha na pod and tulo ka baglis. So ingana ra pag mark sa ilang mga congruent parts. So we have here, what's more, practice activities. So let's take a look at this one. List down the corresponding parts of the given congruent triangles at right by completing the table. So kita gaantag duha ka triangle gihapon, si TUV, triangle TUV, ug si triangle WXY. So sa vertices ta una, ang vertex Y is congruent to vertex V. So ang next nga vertex nga congruent, tan-aw na to sa atong illustration, congruent si vertex U og si vertex Y. Then we have angles. O natay gihatag nga si angle VTU is congruent to angle YXW. So meaning ana, congruent si angle T og si angle X. So meaning, congruent pod ang vertex T og vertex X. So sakto tong atong answer nga, congruent si vertex U og vertex W. Now kay angles naman pod ang gipangita, so congruent pod si angle U og si angle W. So congruent si angle TUV og si YWX. Then sa sides, ayun na ang pag-identify sa sides kay naa may markings nga gihatag. So side TU na isa ka bagles is congruent to side WX kay isa man pud ang bagles. And then side TV is congruent to side YX. And then UV is congruent to WY. So ingana ra ang pag-identify sa corresponding parts. Now let's go to the continuation on lesson 2, corresponding parts of congruent triangles gihapon. So let's read the definition. If and only if the vertices of the two triangles can be paired so that corresponding sides are congruent and corresponding angles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. So gibalik ka rin ni diri sa ibabaw yung definition of kanang congruent triangles. So consider the examples below. Listed below are the 6 parts of corresponding parts of the two congruent triangles. Name the two congruent triangles. So kung sa ibabaw, kita mo identify sa mga congruent nga parts sa given nga triangle, ani gitagaan-tag mga parts nga congruent. Ang atong i-identify is ang congruent triangles. So para dali nato i-visualize, pwede nato ni siya i-drawing. Now, here are our given congruent corresponding parts. So, natin mga angles nga gihatag. Angle A is congruent to angle B. Angle C is congruent to angle D. Angle E is congruent to angle F. These angles are also known as our vertex. So, this means that vertex A is congruent to vertex B and so on. Here we also have the sides, congruent sides. Side AC is congruent to side BD, side CE is congruent to side DF, and side AE is congruent to side BF. So pwede na nila to siya i-drawing. So these are our vertex. So atong i-draw ning first na to nga vertex, vertex A. So this will be our vertex A na congruent to vertex B. Para sa pikas ng B. Then our angle C or vertex C. And then sa pikas, angle D or vertex D. Then we have E. And we have F. So these are our vertices or our given angles. So since A is congruent to B, C is congruent to D, E is congruent to F. Now, ari na punta sa sides. AC is congruent to BD. So atong i-connect. This is our side AC. And this is our side BD. They are congruent with each other. Then, we have CE is congruent to DF. So, muna itong CE, which is congruent to DF. And then, AE is congruent to BF. So, muna itong AE, congruent to BF. Then, pwede na to i-label ang atong mga angles. Angle A is congruent to angle B. Angle C is congruent to angle D. And angle E is congruent to angle F. So, this is our congruent triangles. So, saan nato pag-name ang atong triangle? So, we can name this as triangle ACE and then triangle BDF. And they are congruent to each other. So, ano ra class pag visualize sa atong congruent triangles? Or simply, kung ingan nila ang given, mo man ang angles, no? And these are also our vertices. This one will be our first triangle, then congruent to this one will be our second triangle, BDF. So that's the answer for the first example. For number 2, write down the 6 parts of congruent corresponding parts of triangle ABC and triangle XYZ without drawing the triangles. So naatay gihatagan tag duha ka congruent nga triangle ABC and XYZ, then atong i-identify ang mga congruent corresponding parts. So pwede nga dili nata mag-drawing based ra ta ani sa given nga names sa mga triangle. So we have triangle ABC and then triangle XYZ. So kaning tulo ka letters, these are the vertex, 'di ba? So which means ang A is congruent to X kay sila man ang nag-una. Then ang B is congruent to Y kay sila man ang ikaduha. And ang C is congruent to Z. So this means that vertex A is congruent to vertex X, and then vertex B is congruent to vertex Y, and vertex C is congruent to vertex Z, which also means that angle A is congruent to angle X. Kaya di ba ang atong vertex, mao naman na ang atong name pod sa atong angle. So therefore, angle A is congruent to angle X, angle B is congruent to angle Y, and angle C is congruent to angle Z. Now, for the sides, ato ra pong tan-awon ang name sa atong triangle. So, ang first two letters, ang first two vertex, kaya di ba, kung atong i-connect ang duha ka vertex, makabuo ta og isa ka side. So, ang atong side AB is congruent to side XY. Then, side BC, kaning duha ka letters, last two letters, is also congruent to the last two letters sa atong ikaduha nga triangle. So side BC is congruent to side YZ. And then, side AC is congruent to side XZ. So, inga na ra pag-determine sa congruent corresponding parts based only on the given name of our congruent triangles. Now we have here our practice activities. You can try answering this one, the same run sa atong examples. And then lastly, lesson 3, we have the properties of congruent triangles. So ang atong congruent triangles na ay tulo ka property. The congruence of triangles is an equivalence relation. Since congruence of triangles is defined in terms of the congruences of the three pairs of corresponding sides and the three pairs of corresponding angles, then congruence of triangle is also an equivalence relation. Kaya diba, dili man makongruent ang triangle kung dili pud congruent ang iyang sides o ang iyang angles o iyang vertex. So mo na gitawag og equivalence relation. It tells that the congruence of triangles satisfies the following properties. So naitulo ka properties. We have reflexive property, symmetric property, and transitive property. So ang reflexive property is ang given side is congruent with itself. So we have AB is congruent to AB and angle C is congruent to angle C. Kay monay definition sa reflexive property. And then we have symmetric property. So kung symmetric, murag binali. So if side AB is congruent to side DE, then side DE is congruent to side AB. Diba, mura siya gibali. Kung congruent si AB to DE, so therefore, congruent po si DE to AB. Same with angle. If angle A is congruent to angle B, then angle B is congruent to angle A. So that's symmetric property. And then we have transitive property. If side AB is congruent to side DE, and DE is congruent to side GH, then AB is congruent to GH. That's transitive property. If angle A is congruent to angle B, and angle B is congruent to angle C, then angle A is also congruent to angle C. That's transitive property. So familiarize with the properties of congruent triangles. Magawas ni sa assessment ug sa summative test. So you have here your practice activities. So na example, reflexive property. Diba, reflexive property is being congruent to itself. So side GK is congruent to side GK. And then symmetric property. Ang sa ganang symmetric property, murag balihon. So if angle P is congruent to angle Q, then angle Q is of course congruent to angle P. And then we have transitive property. If side HT is congruent to side GP and side GP is congruent to side AD, then HT is congruent also to AD. And then we have reflexive property. So, unsa man ang congruent sa angle XYZ? You know the answer. And then, letter B, state the property that each statement illustrates. So, na statement, kamo inyong i-identify kung unsa na nga property, transitive, reflexive, or symmetric. That's very easy. So that's it for corresponding parts of congruent triangles. Now we have viewer assessment. You need to answer this one. Answer very carefully. Choose the correct answer from the given choices. So read the questions carefully. So review your lessons first before answering. Okay, that's it for today's module. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me, message me on Messenger, or text me on my mobile number. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening, and have a good day.